Hello traders, it's August 29th and there was some lots of good opportunities today, but there was a particularly interesting one that I wanted to call out that I ended up taking. Today we kind of opened up in the middle of this range and we had news that was coming out at 7 a.m. Immediately though, something that I wanted to point out was while we weren't necessarily making much of a higher high compared to the previous day here, the VIX was already at the recent lows. So we already had a divergence going into the first 30 minutes of the day with the VIX coming off, a lot of pressure, potential volatility and pressure coming off before we had even made any substantial moves. And then my eyes were glued to the 10-year yield. I've talked about the yields in the last couple of videos, and so the yields are another important factor here. So before 7 a.m., which is 7 a.m. Pacific, that's when we had news happen. I want to talk about just a minor opportunity. I don't necessarily love this one because of the time in which it occurred, but what we did have was some pretty nice structure to open the day. We had fairly strong buying and aggressive buying. It culminated up here at this 44.50 area with very aggressive high volume and aggressive buying to kind of finish this move off, but we saw price stay and continue to go up. This is all meanwhile the VIX is trending down pretty aggressively. So to see this consolidation and then yet another aggressive move off with like a large basing of aggressive buyer basing this out, this became a potential area of interest for me early in the day. And we ended up getting a return to this level right here with high volume, and it ended up lacking progress and reversing to the upside. So that was a nice opportunity. Maybe in a different situation I would have put some risk on here. However, we were headed just in a few minutes headed into the 7 a.m. Pacific news beat, which was jobs and consumer confidence. So we'll fast forward a little bit because this is where I feel it gets even more interesting. So the moment, we'll just wait for 7 a.m. here. The moment this news comes out, we immediately get this big spike to the upside. And largely due to, I think, the jobs openings coming in lower than expected, showing a little bit of maybe weakening or decline in the job market, and that's kind of disinflationary. So the market was probably happy to see that data. Ultimately, this price action is what is most important and interesting to me, not necessarily the cause of the price action, but just if you didn't have any awareness of the news and you were just watching this price action, I don't think that would necessarily change the setup. So what happened, this was another key factor in setting this trade up, was that the moment this news came out, we gapped down on the yields and we started to rapidly move down toward 4.1% on the yields down here. And getting back into these lower levels is also going to relieve some of this downside pressure we've seen on the market lately. So seeing this immediate reaction out of the yields, this immediate reaction out of the market, And then we also had the volatility index just continuing to go to basically new recent lows, all three bullish indicators. Then we got this activity. So we have the huge move up, very aggressive. This level of intensity off of the job openings news in combination with the yields rolling off, that really piqued my interest in thinking this is a bit out of the ordinary. The market feels primed for continuation today. So that really helped bolster my bullish outlook. Then we started to get this stuff. So we started to see these tape bombs, aggressive tape bombs just firing up off. I don't know if these are like hyper enthusiastic buyers just hammering. If they're just hammering the market here, or if these are someone exiting short positions or what. But it was extremely bullish. And looking over here at this column, this is the session range volume, and it is the delta. So it's showing the buy minus sell, meaning that this many more buyers, there are this many more aggressive buyers than sellers in this whole range here. About 62.50 up to 64. So all of these aggressive buyers seriously outweighing the amount of aggressive sellers in this range. So this was another confirmation for me to consider scaling in on this area. Typically, my normal style is to wait for a retracement back down to sort of the origination of a lot of these moves where there could be leftover institutional orders. But purely because of this consolidation, what I had mentioned about the yields, and then the delta that has been built up here, this felt like these buyers were so heavily motivated that price was not going to get much lower than this. So I did begin to scale in. I scaled in, I believe I was looking for prices around this 63 range to hold. So let me fast forward a little bit here. So I was still observing. I was still seeing, are we going to use this region where all of these large buyers, just mark it up here, are we going to use this region as a springboard, essentially hold? And so this was kind of the first test. We tested down lower into here and we found buyers up above it. Then we got more aggression. So this was kind of the confirmation of, okay, I'm feeling really comfortable with establishing a position at this point. So after we started to sell back down, I scaled, I think I scaled my first one here, anticipating that we may hold at this level. And then I'll speed this up a little bit. And we saw even more progress to the upside here. But I wasn't willing to chase out of my risk zone because I wanted to get my risk safely under this area in case we did experience a pullback. So it was going to be about 4 points was my risk, so about at 59 down here. And we got a bit more consolidation, and it looked like it could have easily primed itself and just ripped up higher. But we did get a move back lower, so I was willing to continue to scale in even further because of the conviction I had to the upside. So at about 710 here, I'm going to slow it down. We started to see prices come back down. I'll go to 2x. So I added additional here. and I was looking for this hold ideally around 61 or so. Lowest would be comfortable would be 60, looking for this, or potentially a little stop run or a peekaboo below this range, and then for these buyers to quickly pick price back up and lift it back up above where all of this delta was, high delta, buy delta was sitting here. So we're just going to 4x just to speed it along for the purpose of the video. So here's this stop run, and it immediately V-shaped recovery. I love to see it. Stop run, V-shaped recovery right back above where the run was initiated. There's the conviction, add some more, and away we go. So I had still, because of the high volatility and the nature of this setup being a bit out of my ordinary, kind of buying a bit higher than I might normally. I did not scale in my typical full size, but seeing this this bullish activity off the V-shaped recovery, and then having these aggressive buyers continue to hold at expected levels, that was all I needed for added confirmation. And then we kind of had this 65 level after we got up above the range, and then we held it right there at this 65 where we had established some consolidation. And then the rest is kind of history. So I did end up scaling as we approached. If I just go back to here, we had this range right in here that could potentially offer some resistance, so up to about 85. So started to scale out in these 70s, 75, and then waited, anticipating that we would likely see a pullback, but we got this squeeze up. I had another target up here at 75. And every time we got these big bumps up, we would consolidate, pull back gently, and then typically when we hit these areas where we saw these rips originate, price was able to stabilize and hold above that. So, you know, my exits averaged right about there. So it was about 10 points average on those. Of course, there's always hindsight trading saying, oh, I should have held. But given how quick this move was, I was anticipating a pullback in which I would have been able to re-enter, because there were so many good areas of support to re-enter. Of course, it was one of those days that just kind of consolidated and kept going up. So if we just speed this up here, we do push through this liquidity and go up into the 80s. And then that was it for my trades today. I was eyeing this area again, so starting at about where we had this buy delta, starting about here in this region, I was eyeing pullbacks into here to scale in and take this to the upside again. We did get this rather dramatic pullback with a lot of selling pressure coming in, and look at this sell delta here. This was another potential area to try to take the market back down short based on this sell delta, but just looking at the yields in the VIX, it didn't make sense to try to get short today. And then in hindsight, seeing all of this liquidity build up on the tape here after this pullback and a very aggressive move back to the upside, this was maybe a potential to go maybe smaller size, or just take a take a starter position or smaller position that was further away from where my area was risk to reward or kind of ideal pullback area was going to be. And that was it. It was essentially this double bottom, and then we were off and running again to new highs, higher highs. So pretty phenomenal day. I really liked the signal that we got down in this range. We got that textbook pullback in there, kind of testing the lows, shaking a few people out, and then just ripping higher, and got all the confirmations needed between the yields and the VIX to have high conviction for that one. So that was a really lovely setup. Those are the setups that you just salivate over when you see them developing there. So hope you enjoyed the recap, and I hope you all had a great day as well.